we are going to go ahead and talk about fungi. Okay, so overview. Most fungi are eukaryotic, and they do have cell walls. Remember, cell walls are the barrier outside of the cell membrane that help give it shape and protect it. They are heterotrophs, and they feed by absorbing their food, meaning they have to be on something that has nutrients so that they can suck it up or absorb those nutrients. And they reproduce using spores. So they release these spores into the air, and they fly until they are planted and then can germinate. Okay, so fungi structure and food. So most fungi, except for the simplest forms such as yeast, have cells arranged in structures called hyphae. So here's our example. Mushroom is a good example of fungi, and you're going to see that there are these hyphae. They look like almost little veins inside of the mushroom. And the hyphae are tiny threads of cytoplasm, and they are surrounded by a plasma membrane, so they're almost like a little tube, and they're covered by a cell wall, which is usually really strong, made of chitin, which is like a strong protein. And hyphae of a fungus typically branch as they grow, forming a mat called a mycelium. So here's the mycelium right here. So all the hyphae are growing, and they're growing into this organism right here. And those mycelium are growing down into the organism, and now they are going to invade that organism so that they can absorb the food that is being stored by the other organism down here. Now, it doesn't have to be another organism. It could be in the ground. The ground has plenty of nutrients, but the mycelium would almost be like a root in this case if it was ground. And the fungi absorb their food through this hyphae, and it goes up. Now, fungi usually have some sort of cap. They have these gills that you'll usually find on them. The spores are their reproductive organs, so you'll see that those fall and fly away. The stalk is the harder part, and then you have the hyphae, which are these little wires. Fungi reproduction. So fungi reproduce using spores, as I already said. A lightweight spore is surrounded by protective covering, and it is usually carried easily through the air or through water. And that way it can be move into different diverse areas where it can germinate. Spores and reproductive structures are called fruiting bodies. So before the spores are released, when they're just stored in these areas in the organisms, those things are called fruiting bodies, and they hold the spores. And these can be made either sexually or asexually. Remember, asexually means just with one parent, so it would be basically a clone of those other cells, or sexually means half the genetics from one organism and half the genetics for another organism. So groups of fungi. So club fungi, okay, that's this kind of like mushrooms, produce spores in club structures. So that's where you'll see all the spores coming out of, and those are mushrooms and puffs. These are some examples. Sac fungi produce spores in sac-like structures. So these are the little sacs. You have yeast, which are microscopic, and truffles, which are also sac fungi. And then zygote fungi. This produces very resistant spores. This is usually fruit and bread mold. So all the mold that you get all over your fruits and your breads and all your vegetables, usually your food mold, okay, all is grouped into this zygote fungi. And it's resistant because it has to be resistant, meaning like you can still have your strawberries get mold in the fridge because those spores are resistant to the cold. Okay, they are very hardy or sturdy fungi. All right, and that's all. I hope that makes sense, and have a good night.